Welcome back to Cave of Science and Running Scientist Production. This is our correction video for our third QPO. This correction video is very similar to the previous two, as the overall format of the QPO has not changed. In fact, the rest of the semester will still be the same. We had the overall QPO here. I know I put this out there. Miss Butler put this together, and we did this one. There was a couple changes we did in our class, and that really had to do with the graphing on there. Example, how to use Logger Pro, and that was the only thing different in this particular QPO that we had not done before, is using the Vernier Logger Pro, which was kind of cool. And also we learned how to do a couple functions, which made our life much easier. A couple overall things I noticed on this one. Again, we had 14 days for this, so if you had a couple people in your group, you had 28 student days, and if you had 3, you had like 42 days to pull this together. One is almost inexcusable, is the use of the spell checker. At this point in your academic careers, any Google Doc with something underlined in red is misspelled, or at least investigate it to make sure it's correct. Our use of bold statements. If you want to use bold for headings or for words, is fine, but to have whole paragraphs that are bold is really not used in a report, and we've discussed this before. And as we've talked about before, use the same font and the same type size. If you want to use your headings a different font or a different color or a different type size, that's perfectly acceptable, but for the body of the work, it all should be consistent. The other thing, the proper pronoun I is a capital letter. I saw many cases where I is a lowercase, and I'm sure your English teachers would frown with that usage. Also, I guess the next one, sentences start with capital letters and sentences end with periods. Also, the words "dunna" and "gonna" are not used in reports. Again, I think our English teachers would probably frown at that usage also. And also check your page breaks. A lot of you got headings just kind of hanging off by themselves. Just hit a couple enter, and put it with the data that it is talking about. Alright, let's look at this. Miss Butler put this together, and like I said, we only really made a couple changes in our class. One, group members. Some of us put them in, some of us didn't. The other is page numbers, and again, we have done this before. Page number, and we're going to the lower right. You click on it, the page numbers hop in there. The question, this is the question that is answered by all the work you did. You do not answer this by putting any type of answer here. Your whole QPO answers the question. Personal knowledge, what have you observed? We've dropped things in class. I'm sure you have seen things fall throughout your lifetimes, so you do have some personal knowledge. Scientific knowledge, whatever terms you used, I think, so long as we had somewhere around 10 terms was fine, and they had to be cited in MLA style, which was also true for the previous QPOs and will be true for the rest of them. Prediction. I predict all objects will accelerate the same rate because we saw the demonstration in class. Easy enough. As long as it's complete sentence, you're fine there. Investigation plan. Many of them were not very detailed. This is an experiment that you are going to conduct, where any person who would read that experiment could conduct it. One thing I noticed quite a bit was, we're gonna get the mass of an object, but then you fail to include in the equipment either an electronic balance or a triple beam balance. So again, detail here. Observations. This is your tables. This is also your spreadsheets you created, and on the spreadsheets you had time, velocity, and acceleration. You could have copied and pasted those which was perfectly acceptable. One thing I noticed on the spreadsheets, the units were missing on the columns. And again, all numbers need a unit. This is also where your videos go in. And we talked about using the link feature, where this would be your text, like wiffle ball, and this would be the link to your video. Your video, let's see if I can pull one up here. I think I've got one. If you right click on it, you can get shareable link. And let's see if mine comes up here. And here would be the link here if you turn link sharing on. Just copy and paste. Nothing too difficult there. And let's see, investigation plan, we have that. And if you did 2 ball drops, you'd have 2 of these data tables. You had to calculate average velocity, and we learned how to do that using a function. And average acceleration, we did that using a function. So that was pretty straightforward there. The data analysis, this is where we changed ours a little bit. We were going to, as we talked about in class, and most people had this, is that we were going to use line graphs, one of average velocity per ball and then one of the acceleration per object you dropped. And so we had our data tables, our sheets looking somewhat like this. We did our average velocity, we had all our velocities, our accelerations, and we just had to make a line graph. If you have this set up very nicely put, go to charts, and really this graph is done already. Some of you had something goofy going on here, and as we talked about throughout the whole first semester, right when you get into data, click these 2 in the middle here, and this usually gets you a pretty good looking graph. And you can see some of you had this just because you didn't have these clicked on. One of the nice thing about Google, don't be afraid to click stuff. You're not going to mess anything up, and it's easy enough to redo. Time in seconds, velocity in meters per second. The only thing I would say here is the title. I would put down velocity meters per second versus time of wiffle ball or whatever it happened to be. So that one was pretty simple to do. The other one you had to do is acceleration. Take this column. Whoop, I don't want the whole thing. Take this column, drag it over. Take this column, if I get the hand, drag next to it, highlight, create the graph. So very simple to do there. I'm going to put this one back up where it belongs. And again, we have done this in class before, doing graphs. Explanation, do objects, claim, answer the question. Evidence, use your data to support your claim. Reasoning, you could have looked at some other ones, or some of you did find an online source, some didn't. I would suggest, especially in the future ones, you find an online source to support your claim. Here we wanted you to calculate percent error for your experiment due to gravity compared to accepted acceleration. We talked about this in class, and very simply put, if sometimes you've got to find it, experimental error. Well, let's see. And we want the equation. And many times if you go to images, you can find it here. And this one right here is a pretty good one. So it's theoretical. As we know, for acceleration due to gravity is 9.81 minus whatever you got divided by theoretical times 100. Very easily done there. We discussed this in class. In fact, I gave you the formula, but you can find a lot of this stuff online on yourself. So that's kind of it for this particular one. Actually, not a whole lot on this one. So if you have any, again, review this. If you have any other burning questions, feel free to ask. So that's it on a snowy Sunday mid-morning.